All right, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 7:07 p.m. Before we get to the agenda, we don't have a statement tonight on the governor's statement today. We have nothing, so it's not even going to be a point of discussion for us in this case. This meeting is going to be an update from Joe McNeil on the negotiations process, what's taken place. The board's going to hold all questions until a further date. We really need to go into an executive session when we get into there because it gets into stuff that belongs there. So it's just going to be Joe's presentation, and then we're going to adjourn the meeting. So it should be, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes or so, all right? So can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Commissioner Hamilton, Commissioner Curry, second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor of the agenda, please say aye. Aye. All those against? Seeing none, agenda passes. I'll open up for public comment. Just one last call. Anybody have any public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. At this point, I'll turn it over to the district's counsel, Joe McNeil, for a negotiations update.
Thank you. I'm here tonight to speak to the negotiations with Burlington teachers. And as you know, there are this is a year when practically every bargaining unit in the school district will also be engaged in collective bargaining. So it will not be long. Excuse me. It won't be long before there will be reports on other negotiations as well. I appreciate the fact that you delayed this. As you know, this was scheduled to occur a couple of weeks ago, and I was recovering and not up to the meeting. So tonight I want to say that although I hope to be able to be here making a progress report as to the negotiations with the teachers, I'm not able to do that because we really haven't thoroughly started yet. Hope springs eternal, though, that with good faith efforts on both sides, we will actually, once we do start next week in earnest, we will be able to continue to engage one another thoroughly on our mutual interests to the point of agreement. As you may recall, our contract indicates that if we don't have an agreement by the 15th of February, then one side or the other can declare us to be at impasse. It's also possible to extend that. Our primary interest this round is not so much how we start, but how we finish. All of you were here most the last time and went through a difficult process that carried us into the next school year. Our hope this time is to be completed with negotiations before the school year ends. That is the good faith effort that our team is prepared to make, and we're hopeful that the teachers will engage us in that effort. Just a little bit of history to date. As you know, we requested the commencement of negotiations for 17-18 before we were actually finished with the negotiations for 16-17. In September of this year, we asked the Teachers Association to commence negotiations for the upcoming year because we knew that there were some fairly significant changes afoot in healthcare, not even to speak of the announcement that we heard today, which from the governor that we didn't even know about, and that remains quite an uncertainty, but something we'll have to pay attention to. The teachers not really unreasonably indicated to us at that time that they wanted to see 16-17 completed before they started 17-18, And so we deferred until we finally got 16, 17 done through the mediation process and the drafting, et cetera. We renewed the request in late October, November, and finally we came to the table one side with the other in early December, December 6th, actually. At that point, we had suggested to the teachers some changes to the ground rules that we had followed in the past. We suggested that negotiations be open in public as opposed to private because of the concerns that were expressed the last time about transparency or the lack thereof. We also suggested that in order to make the process a little bit less difficult, that we agree to have either a facilitated set of negotiations with a mediator present from the beginning, or to, at the very least, have an advanced session relating to how we might both carry out our negotiations better and more effectively than was the case previously. The third thing that we requested was that rather than having the traditional approach of a mediation when and if we reach impasse, having a mediation session followed by a separate and distinct fact-finding session, we suggested that we entertain the notion of what's called a mediated fact-finding, where the same facilitator first serves as a mediator, and then, if no agreement is reached, serves as a fact finder. Unfortunately, from our perspective, the BEA was not enamored of our changes suggested in ground rules. They declined to have open negotiations. They really indicated a preference towards the traditional approach of mediation followed by fact-finding. And while they weren't totally against the notion of having a facilitation meeting to make negotiations better, they were not in favor of having an intermediary or mediator present through the entire process.
Hey.
We're on mute.
So that ended the first session. The session involved Mr. Porter, your chair, and myself, and Nathan was available to us in the process. We agreed to consider their objections and come back to a second session, which we did a week or so later. At that point, we indicated that we would cede to, if they were strongly of the view that they didn't want a mediated fact-finding, that we would accede to that wish. We had suggested in the first meeting that we actually have February 1 as our go, no-go date for impasse. We agreed to push that back to February 15th, as I said in my opening remarks. And we agreed to disagree at that point on the notion of whether negotiations should be open or closed. We held to our position, and we said, let's try to move this forward and address that the next time as well. The teachers, through their team, indicated to us that in order to put proposals together in what they considered a meaningful way, they would need information requests answered, and they had a fairly significant dossier of information requests that they gave to us. We in turn committed to try to answer and provide the information requested on most, if not all, the information by the 31st of December. We did that, and then we had another session with the teachers in early January. That meeting did not go that well in the sense that the teachers representatives felt that the information that they had received from the district was in part conflicting, and that it created a variance of up to $1 million as to what the cost of employment was on what we call the snapshot date for purposes of calculating pay increases, et cetera. Usually attempt to take a particular day, the staffing levels at that time, the cost of that staffing, and use that for your percentage increases, et cetera. We were surprised by that contention and committed that we would make Nathan and Nikki Fuller from HR, both of whom had provided information, available to the BEA to try to resolve these differences as quickly as possible, and so that we could really move substantively. We also indicated one to the other that we would endeavor in good faith to be able to exchange proposals on or about the 19th of January. Later, maybe a week or so after, they did have, Nathan and Nikki did have time to sit down or exchange information with Bob Church and the BEA team, and Bob wrote me an email saying that most, if not all, of the differences had been reconciled to the point that they would be in a position to make their substantive proposal exchange with us on the 31st of January. We had been hoping for a sooner date. We indicated our preference for that and our disappointment in the delay in an exchange back. But the fact of the matter is that now I think we're at the point where next week we can finally exchange proposals and hopefully really start substantive conversations. We have indicated, our team has indicated to the BEA that if it would be helpful, and we believe it would be, to move through this process as reasonably and expeditiously as possible, that we'd be willing to meet with them more than once per week between now and the February 15 contract date. That's a conversation that we'll have next week. They haven't indicated whether they're in favor of that or not definitively. So that's a long way around saying that we have attempted to get negotiations going earlier than last year for reasons that, reflect the different approaches taken by the parties. We haven't been able to do that to this point, but hope and optimism should not be abandoned this early in the process. Our team doesn't believe, and we're hopeful for now a rapid and thorough engagement with them. We know that we have big healthcare issues to discuss. We know that, as usual, compensation, and we also know that we'll have some fairly detailed and significant operational issues to discuss. The teachers' representatives have made clear to us that the standards for elementary teachers are very important to them in this round. We also have worked a good bit on the best model for providing educational services and want to look forward to discussing it with them. I don't think it would be appropriate to go into the substance of negotiations here, so I will stop unless there are questions, but I think that brings you up to date.
Joe, we've actually asked everybody not to have questions at this point because we're going to be calling an executive session here probably within the next 7 days or so.
Okay.
So we don't even take the risk of saying things that we shouldn't. So can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Commissioner Harrington, seconded by Commissioner Judson. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye. 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 All those against? Seeing none. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I ask you something
Yeah.
outside of this?
You know,
Pardon me? Oh, yeah.
hey, I'm not putting anything past you, pal. Yeah, that's the man right